All right, we are live. Thank you, everyone, for jumping aboard here. And we are firing up the podcast, of course, the post-game show with EJ Snyder. So here we go. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. That's right. Bear down, Bears fans. I haven't had a chance to do that the entire season because I was waiting for a win. But bear down, Bears fans. This is not your average Bears post-game show. I am Bill Zimmerman. EJ Snyder, of course, from Bears Over Beers, or lately Bears Over Bourbon, is with us, and he may be able to enjoy some beers this week. EJ, how are you?
Well, not as good as DJ. DJ had a freaking night. Let's be honest. I am well. I am surprised and happily so. We just got done with our bootleg football live stream of the Thursday night game. I had a bad feeling about this game. I really feel like the Bears didn't match up very well with the Commanders. Shows you what I know. Maybe it's the spirit of Butkus. I hope so. RIP to Dick, and all of our thoughts to his friends and family this particular night. But the Bears tore it up. Like, they didn't leave a lot of doubt, and I actually thought they were going to get stomped in this game. Just a happy accident, and I am thrilled to be able to see it.
Yeah, I thought the Commanders were going to win. I thought the Bears were going to hang in there. I had it at about a touchdown loss was kind of my expectation. But I'm very pleased. We'll talk about it here. We'll kind of go through all the ups and downs of this game because the Bears did make it interesting in the fourth quarter. You just had to sweat it a little bit. But EJ, let's not bury the lead here on a 40-20 win. Let's talk Justin Fields out of the gate here. Had another solid performance, about 285 yards, 15-29, and another 4 touchdowns. That is back-to-back 4 touchdown games. He is right now technically tied for the lead in the NFL in touchdown passes with 11, but more so, he has looked good overall, had a few errant throws today, but hey, I will take the overall performance. He's being decisive. He's getting the ball out most of the time a lot quicker. And I'll be honest, I was expecting a lot of regression here with the Washington defensive line, and Del Rio likes to sit in his zones, which we know is what Justin has been struggling with. I didn't like the matchup there defensively, but he proved me wrong.
Absolutely. He has looked like a different quarterback over the last 2 weeks. There is no other way to put that gently. The first 3 weeks, he did not see open receivers, even when they were schemed that way, even when they were, NFL WAO, which is as open as anybody ever gets in the league. And he still, for a multitude of reasons, was not catching up on that. And the last 2 weeks he has. When guys have come open, broken open, when he's had coverage breaks, other things that NFL quarterbacks need to be able to take advantage of, he's taken advantage of them. And it's been shocking. It's been a little bit stunning, but it's also been awesome. And it has resulted in a kind of points outbreak in Chicago that Bears fans have not been used to for the last 10, 12, 14 games.
Yeah, you got 34 points per game on the average here the last 2 games. And what I'm loving with Justin is, when we've gone back and looked at the game film, we've seen a lot of times where we just see Chase Claypool, open, DJ Moore open. We saw things where, like, Justin, you got to do that. And in some cases, they weren't just NFL open; they were open. Yeah. And now we're seeing. Yeah, there's been plenty of times against Denver and again tonight that guys were open. He saw it, he hit it. But at the same time, still showing you that he can thread the needle on that deep ball. That throw on DJ Moore's second touchdown was, he couldn't have thrown it better within 4 inches. That was the perfect placement for that ball. Only DJ could get it. And DJ Moore, we haven't talked about him yet too much. Just an absolutely incredible performance and just a absolute yak machine tonight.
Yeah. What the Bears are really finding is that hey, alpha receivers matter. And oh, yeah, by the way, in the offseason, we did a thing. We got one of those. Like, why aren't we using that? And that was probably the most confusing thing. You know, that in the offseason, I was very excited about the acquisition of DJ Moore. Loved him pre-draft before he came out, followed his career in Carolina. Really excited when he was acquired by the Bears. Hey, this is what Justin probably needs to excel. And then, sort of inexplicably, for the first 3 weeks, they just don't target him a lot. They don't use that resource. Tonight, kind of the other thing. Like, if you're talking about an overcorrection, this is an overcorrection. 8 receptions for 230 yards, 28.8 per catch. Like,
that's Flipper Anderson numbers. I'm going to show my age, but
yeah, but that's staggering. Toss on 3 touchdowns on top of that. Fun fact, my other podcast partner, Brett Coleman, had him on his bench. But look, in the first 3 weeks, he was open for a bunch of those. He could have had much better numbers, and Justin just wasn't seeing him for whatever reason. And super frustrating. It was part of what spoke to a larger problem. All of a sudden, over the last 2 weeks, really in the Denver game, and then now in the Commanders game, he's carried it over. Like, when those guys have come open, Cole Kmet came open on a completely broken coverage in the Denver game, hit him for a touchdown. Some contested throws to DJ Moore, threw them up, some great double moves from DJ Moore as well. And he's paying it off. But the idea is throw it up. Your alpha wide receiver will pay that off. Give him the chances. Never got there in the first 3 weeks. Last couple of weeks, getting there all the time. And the results are speaking for themselves. Very obvious.
Yeah, and I see this in the comments, so I'll bring it up from Tumultuous Titan about the phantom out of bounds whistle on DJ. He was furious that happened. And look, we did not see a good angle. They clearly did not have one to show us, but that was awfully close, EJ. I think there was a decent chance he had stayed in bounds there, and that could have been a 5-touchdown night. And I don't, another 270 yards for DJ if that doesn't get called.
Yeah, it's a crazy performance, and not just by DJ and Justin. We're focusing on them right now, but the defense played better. We saw a lot of backups, quite frankly, in the secondary making tackles on the first attempt, which we didn't even see in the Denver game, and we certainly haven't seen in the first 3 weeks. You pretty much assume that anybody gets the ball on the edge against the Bears, they're going to break 3 tackles and pick up another 15 to 18 yards. Tonight, saw a bunch of guys stopped on the first tackle, like at 3 yards, at 5 yards. That's a huge deal for a team. Like, it adds up. And to see suddenly both sides of the ball elevated, I go back to the comments of, oh, we're not that far away. We're really close, which we laughed at. I openly laughed at 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
Said, no. You're so far away from being good. Maybe not. Like, the Commanders played really decent ball against the Eagles. The Eagles are an overtime, incredibly good team who went to the Super Bowl last year. And the Bears just thrashed the Commanders, like thrashed them. And that's, I don't know, that's the NFL in a nutshell.
Yeah, it really is. It changes week to week, and hopefully things continue to trend the right direction for the Chicago Bears. For those of you listening live, we appreciate you, Bill Zimmerman and EJ Snyder. And if you have any comments, questions, we will get to those at the end of the show. So make sure you drop them in the comments section, and we will get to them. And EJ, I want to ask you a little bit more about the defense, but before I do, offensive line play, I try and keep an eye on it as much as I can. I like to go back and watch it rather than just in the broadcast footage. But, I will say I missed Tevin Jenkins. I like seeing him out there. Couple plays where I saw him pushing his guy, and that's a defensive line you can't push around too well. And he had those guys 4 or 5 yards down the field on a couple occasions. Pass blocking reps looked pretty good. I understand he was rotating. Lucas Patrick goes out, and then he still rotates with Ja'Tyre Carter. But overall, with that front that the Washington football team has, the offensive line, you have to be very pleased with how they looked overall. At least I was.
This is 4/5 of what they hoped they were going to have this year. And unfortunately, they had to get lucky/unlucky to get it. Never happy to see a guy injured, but look, Lucas Patrick has been soft since he arrived with the Bears. He got thrashed last year. The idea that they were counting on him this year to play center was never something I supported. Again, never happy to see a guy take an injury, but Tevin is on the reserves list. They moved Cody Whitehair over to center, and Cody Whitehair is the tale of two centers. As a blocker, both running and passing, he is a far better center than Lucas Patrick. As a snapper, he is not better. We saw 3-4 errant snaps tonight that Justin caught.
And one of them Justin saved.
We're just really lucky that Justin is a tremendous athlete and was able to corral those snaps, because those could be huge negative plays. Cody has always struggled with snapping. Like, he has never been a great snapper. He is a very good blocker from the center position, and he's good at holding the middle of the line together. And we saw that. Tevin came in, and honestly, you've got 4 out of 5 at that point. You've got Tevin, Cody, you've got Nate Davis, who's your, big free agent addition, and then you've got your first round or, high round right tackle pick in Darnell Wright. And that's 4 out of 5 that the Bears expected to have that they've not seen together. And yeah, the line looks, in terms of blocking and power and angles and levels of pass blocking, which is deeply important, way better. And, if they had their left tackle who's out due to injury, this would be 5 out of 5. This would be the 5 that they were looking for and thought they had assembled. And that would make a big difference. Even 4 out of 5 made a big difference in their offense. And I hope they can keep them together and keep them growing and sort of vibing and figuring each other out. Because, as you know, that's a big, big deal, is having trust in your other line mates to do the things, to handle things the way you think they're going to handle them, not having miscommunications. That all adds up. No real relief at left tackle. Larry Borum got turnstiled a couple times tonight. Not surprising. It was Chase Young. But 4 out of 5 is way better than what they had to start the year, and it shows.
Yeah, I'll be curious here with the longer week. I know the players will take the next few days off, but with the longer week, seeing that Ja'Tyre Carter, I don't know if you saw this, was getting left tackle reps before the game. I'd be curious if that's something they may flirt with next game against Minnesota. But Darnell Wright, again, continues to show some impressive reps. I had a couple where they got him, but that's fine. Rookie right tackle, no problems there. They didn't highlight it too much on the broadcast, but Jeff Schwartz actually saw it. There was a running play to the left where Darnell Wright came around pulling. Jeff Schwartz put it on his Jeff with a G. If you don't know Jeff Schwartz, check out his Twitter feed. He put it on his Twitter feed. Darnell Wright coming down, pulling, just trucked a guy, just basically ran over him, did not go down. It was not a pancake, as he trucked right through him and then went out and got another block. That is the kind of stuff you love to see from a rookie, just being aggressive, just knocking guys down. I didn't get a chance to watch it as much today because I was focusing more on Tevin and trying to watch Cody at center. But the Broncos game, Nate Davis and Wright played really well together in their tandem blocking and their chipping and everything they needed to do. That has the potential to be a really good right side here for the next couple 3 years.
Completely agree. Saw that comment from you earlier in the week and couldn't agree more. This is, I feel really good for Ryan Poles, quite frankly, because
he needed a W.
He needed a W. He's taken a lot of body shots over the last few weeks, and rightfully so. Like, that's the gig when you're the GM. Buck stops here on your desk. But this is what he planned for, like high-priced free agent at right guard, highly placed draft pick at right tackle. This is going to solidify my line. And he hadn't gotten to see that for a multitude of reasons. He saw it a little bit last week. He saw it a little bit more this week. It's just got to make him feel pretty good. I'm still going to ding him for not taking a center. I was flabbergasted during the draft that during a very good center draft, where you had centers down into the 5th and 6th round who have started games this year in the NFL, and you decided, nah, Lucas Patrick's good. We're fine there. Like, I thought that was a miscalculation at the time, but seeing his vision come together on the right side and seeing them move people, be effective in pass protection, get out, find work, blow people up, like, that is what Bears football has been based on or wanted to be based on for a long time. Seeing it come to fruition over the last couple of weeks, got to be very gratifying for Ryan Poles. And I hope he gets to see more of it because that was the plan.
Yeah, and hopefully here the running back injuries aren't too severe, because that was wild losing 3 running backs like that. So hopefully there's really not too much to say about it. We'll just cross our fingers. Extra time off, that should hopefully help them get healthy. We'll see if Roschon can come back in 10, 11 days from a concussion. But let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. You talked about it a little bit. You know, the defensive line, look, the Washington gives up a lot of sacks. We're not going to sit there and say that they got through the Eagles line here. And Sam Howell has young guy, has a tendency to hold on to the football too long. But you saw a lot more positive impact plays from this defensive line. I mean, that Andrew Billings tackle for a loss early in the game, he just trucked through the O-line, made a huge play. Billings has been doing that consistently. And at this point, when you look at Ryan, for DJ Moore's a trade, when you look at his free agent acquisitions and take into account, maybe not even take into account value, but if you take into account value at what they are paying him, that was a gold signing from Ryan Poles, and he has really been the anchor of that defensive line.
Yeah. I said early on in our Thursday night live stream, like, Billings can stay. Like, a lot of you can go, but Billings can stay. He has been contributing from early on. I liked his work early in his career, showed a little bit of pass rush even in the first week, which was kind of bereft of highlights, and has continued to make plays both against the run and the pass throughout the rest of this, still short campaign, but made a large difference. More so, Brett actually said more so than any other Ryan Poles kind of free agent addition in terms of like impact per dollar. Like, Billings is near the top of that list. He can stay. Like, he and Justin Jones in terms of effort, sure. Javon Dexter in there, like, that's a decent rotation. You still need a star, but like, those guys are stalwarts and they're going to give you downs, and you need those guys in the NFL. That's really important. And I think in down times, and it has certainly been a downtime for the Bears over the last 3 weeks, you identify guys that are still playing hard, that still love football, that are still going to give you everything they have, whether they're down by 20 or up by 10. And there are those guys. And if you're watching film, they stick out. And some of those are young guys. Some of those are guys with a year's worth of experience, some more. And then there are also the flip side of that, guys that are not going to do that. And those, the first category is the guys you need to build your team. Like, and Billings clearly qualifies from an impact and an effort perspective. He's a guy that can stay around.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the secondary. Always a little tough to get a full picture of the secondary off the broadcast, but we'll do our best here. Greg Stroman, you gotta give him credit. He made a couple major impactful plays that you're talking about basically your third string nickelback. He did a heck of a job out there.
He made a difference tonight, and that's not something he's done in the past. He's made plays. He's had flashes. He's played with effort. Those are all good things, but there's a different level that we're talking about when you say that guy made a difference. He had a sack, he had a pick. Like, he had an impactful evening, and that has not been the kind of player he has been in the past. He has been solid, certainly certain circumstances. He has eaten downs, which he's needed to do given where he is in the player rotation. But tonight was different for him. Like, a bunch of people are going to pay attention to him, learn his name, maybe didn't even know he was in the league before tonight. He popped on film, and that's a good thing and good for him. That's how players who are on that fringe make a mark. And he made a couple of marks, and they're big ones.
Yeah, they were absolutely big plays in this game that helped definitely helped the Bears stave off a Washington comeback. Where are you right now on Tyreek Stevenson? I think I don't know if some of the way Eberflus has been using him is his best coverage ability, but there's been some questionable coverage. He makes a lot of tackles. He can get up and get in there, but I don't know. I've been disappointed overall in Tyreek's. I know he's a rookie. He has plenty of time to get better, but I've been disappointed overall with what I've seen from him in the last 5 games. And one second follow-up of that was that PI on the deep call on the deep throw.
Calls are always interesting because they occur within the flow of the game. So I'm answering the second question first. Officiating is this wild dance of, hey, we gave them this, we called this one this way earlier, we owe them this, we can't call this because we didn't call that. It's a really interesting balance, and taking any call sort of out of context and putting it under a bright light and saying, was it right, is difficult to do outside of the flow of the game. Was it called outside the flow of the game? Nah, it was within what they'd called both ways. So that is, quote unquote, a good call. That is a consistent call. Could you, again, take it, put it on a slide, put it under bright lights and say, is this wrong? You could. Going back to Stevenson, very physical corner, press man guy. That was the book on him. Good size, always going to play that way. And the knock against him coming into the league was he's going to have to figure out what they throw flags for. He is figuring that out. Has he figured it out? Absolutely not. He is still on the heavy side. He is still being heavy-handed. He is backing off, and a little bit slowly, like normally. Well, not normally. Sometimes guys get called for that early and they go way the other way and they swing off and they just won't touch anybody for the rest of the season. Stevenson's just laying on people and seeing where the line is. And the line is, that's too much, Rook. We're not going to give you the all-star call for that. Like, you're beating on him. His PI down towards the end zone, like, if I made the point on the live stream, if he hadn't touched him again, the initial bump was really good. It was a little subtle, drove him out of bounds. And if he hadn't touched him again throughout the rep, he's not going to get called for that. Like, very few officiating teams in the NFL are going to call him for that initial bump, because that's just kind of in phase, natural contact, whatever. That was super well camouflaged, but very effective. Drove the receiver basically out of bounds. But then again, late when the receiver's in the end zone and he sort of just gives him an additional shove, that's going to draw a flag. And that's what he'll learn is, hey, I can give him the first one, but I can't give him the second one. And he hasn't figured that out yet. And if he doesn't figure that out, he's not going to be a very effective corner, because he's going to draw a lot of flags. But if he can do the first thing that he did without doing the second thing, that's a good NFL corner.
Yeah, and on the other side, Terrell Smith, I like, especially as a 5th round guy who looked like, I think he slid a little, everything, I'm not grinding rookie, prospect tape like you do, but a guy that probably 4th round more apt, even maybe late 3rd, but he fell to the Bears. And he, when he's getting opportunities, you got to like some of the reps he's putting together.
I agree. I underestimated Terrell Smith a little bit because he's not particularly fluid. He is a straight line athlete. He's got good size. He is physical, a lot like Tyreek Stevenson, but he's shown a little bit more ability to knock that off in the pass rush game, and a huge ability to support in the run game, come forward and make tackles, which was always part of his college game. But that's of, I don't want to say no value in the NFL, but it's of limited value in the NFL. And I said, look, this is a straight line athlete, doesn't have the ability to sort of turn and mirror and run with people that are faster. And he's played up to the top level of his ability and not let that limit him. And tonight he made a bunch of plays early with that physical, aggressive, attacking style near the line of scrimmage, especially. He's played above the expectations I had for him. Again, got to see him at Shrine Bowl and came away thinking, well, okay, like later round corner, you've got some ability depending on your scheme. You can throw him in there. He's going to work, but not somebody I'd like prioritize. Bears are getting the most out of him right now.
Yeah, they really are. Well, while we're talking defense, let's talk about Eberflus's game, because I mean, I have been crushing that guy the last few weeks,
and rightfully so,
on every aspect of what he does. But talking about the defensive coordinator here right now, did a lot more things that I think were positive, where you sit there and go, well, this is why the Colts defense had moments where it was professional. It was good. It was in the top half of the league. I sent out like his pressure rates because I've been so frustrated with what they've been doing there, but looked like there were a lot more blitzes coming in. I tweeted out a chart this afternoon that showed that the Bears were literally in the NFL. They blitzed less than every other team, but he definitely dialed up some more pressures, disguised a couple times. They highlighted one on the broadcast, disguised some stuff for Sam Howell that confused him, got in and helped get the pressure, that was the Stroman sack, I believe. There was just a lot of positives from Eberflus. He just didn't sit back and let Washington dictate. He looked like he tried to dictate how Washington had to play. It was just a much better called game from Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, it looked like an NFL defense. Let's just call it what it is. Up to this point, not so much.
True.
Especially in week 1 and week 2, bleeding over into week 3 even. Very little creativity, like straight up. How many times did you get straight up 4 rushers, stand up, push on your guy, see if you can win? Like, that is not an NFL game plan. That is not even a JV game plan. I went to a JV game last week where I saw more twists and stunts than that. Tonight, wholly different. Like, the Stroman sack was a pure DB blitz off the edge, absolutely planned. Multiple times, multiple reps where he brought 5 twists and stunts. Even saw an overload. That's been one that I've been hammering on for the past couple of weeks, is does not overload a side, leaves it completely even. And that, for those of you that don't follow line play, makes it much easier for the offensive line to deal with, right? You don't have 3-on-2. You have 2-on-2 on a side, and they can, float to the center, can just look for work at that point. It just have seen sort of no nuance that says, I know what I'm doing on the defensive side of the ball at an NFL level. Tonight, multiple times I saw 5 rushers, couple of times I saw defensive back pressures, and one of them got home. Obviously, that was the Stroman sack. Twists, multiple times those guys were pushing into the backfield. And look, the Washington offensive line as a whole has not played great. They've played better than the Bears, but not great. And the Bears defensive line specifically put them under pressure tonight. And we've not seen that in the first 4 weeks. Like, they put nobody under pressure in the first 4 weeks. So a great turn of events. I hope it continues. The Bears have some athletes. We know they're deficient at edge rusher. We know that they don't have a lot of options to go to there. But that means you need to be more creative, not less creative. And we saw some of that creativity tonight. All for it. Made a huge difference.
Yep, absolutely. And, I want to ask you a little bit about big picture here before we kind of wrap up the podcast tonight. And for those of you listening and watching live, appreciate you. And again, if you've got any questions or comments, drop those in. We're going to get to those momentarily. So EJ, I got one more about the game, but do you anything you want to highlight that I haven't brought up yet?
It's just a fascinating game. Like, did not expect this to go this way. Bears got up early, was extremely pleased. It's like, to me, it really felt like the laundry list of things we've been asking for. Like, on offense, highlight DJ Moore. You brought him in for a reason. He's a very good player. Throw him the damn ball. Oh, you throw him 2 touchdowns in the first half. Like, you go up early and it puts them under pressure. Who knew? On defense, we just talked about it. Be creative, tackle, come forward, be aggressive, show some stunts, bring 5 occasionally, like mix it up, make it hard for them. Don't make it predictable. They do all that stuff in one night. It's like just, blowing the wad in one game, and they get the win in a big fashion. It's impressive. And I don't know, we kind of sit back and go, holy crap, maybe there's more football team here than we thought.
Yeah, and that's the thing here. Looking forward now, they've got games that are winnable coming up here. Like if this was not a mirage, and based on how they played for 3 quarters against Denver and this game here, it does look like things are starting to come together. I mean, you've gotten, I don't have the schedule up in front of me, the exact order, but you've got Minnesota, you've got the Raiders. Those are 2 teams that are struggling. I know, New Orleans isn't a stalwart. They're decent. The Chargers won't be easy, but then they got Carolina on a Thursday night there in early November. So you got a 4 or 5 game stretch here where there's a few more wins. And look, I am not sitting here declaring after one win, after this awful 0-4 start, that they can turn this thing around and get into the playoffs, but they can certainly make this a competitive season. I mean, we've been sitting here, the Caleb Williams talk was all the buzz here the last week or so, because there was nothing to look forward to. But now you're starting to see a team come together here. This is an opportunity for this team. They can't have these, give you heart attacks in the fourth quarter, because it's an opportunity for Washington to cut it to a 1-score game. Had the field goal, that Ron Rivera kicking that 3 earlier on about the 20-yard line, whatever. That was a terrible decision. I don't know where Riverboat Ron was, but man, oh man, that was that was fortunate for the Bears that happened. But overall, things keep getting better. This team really could have an opportunity to get 3-4 wins added to their total here, and maybe just be a game or 2 under 500 when they get to this tougher stretch coming up in mid to late November.
Yeah, that puts them in a very Bears spot. Like, the Bears are very comfortable winning like 7 games, which is no man's land. Let's talk about it. Like, you're not making the playoffs, and you're not anywhere near, you're just outside the top 10. And the Bears have been there a lot historically. And it is not a great position. Like, it's better, quite frankly, better for an organization to lose a lot, be like a 3-win team, be in the top 2 or 3 picks in the NFL draft, or to get to the playoffs. Like, the no man's land in between of like, oh, we won 5 games. Oh, we won 7 games. Even, we won 8 games, but we didn't make the playoffs. That's pretty much the worst. You're going to be picking in the teens. You're going to have to trade up if you really want preeminent talent at, prime positions, quarterback, edge rusher. So I'm not necessarily rooting for them to sort of push their way into no man's land. I want to see a competitive football team. I want to see them push all their opponents to the brink. And, if you can string together some wins, go for it. You never know what's going to happen. But if they end up just outside the top 10 again, which is like the the Bears' heartland for the draft, it can get very difficult, right? Nobody really is going to give you a king's ransom to trade down from 10 to 16 or anything. And, you're not going to get a shot at the top quarterbacks if you decide that a change is necessary there. So it puts them in a weird spot. But as a fan, I would rather see them play football games like they did the last 2 weeks than they did the first 3 weeks, without a doubt.
Yeah, look, you need to, you can't create a winning football team by just having the number 1 pick back-to-back years. Like it's just, you're not going to be able, the players, everything you're going to have is just going to be a dead culture. But before we get to comments, the last thing I have to say here, and again, I understand this team's 1-4 and there's still a long way to go. But while I want to see, I'm not sitting here cheering for tanking or anything. I'm not, but I still am feeling that I don't want Matt Eberflus to coach this team after this season. Now, if they go 7-10, he's not going anywhere after 2 years.
Yeah.
They're gonna ride that and say that the things are improving. Now, I want to see where Justin can get and see if he can really start putting this together. I mean, over 600 yards and 8 touchdowns the last 2 games, completing, I think, 67% of his passes. I mean, that's outstanding. You love seeing that. But again, if Justin keeps this up and they really start turning the corner, I just feel like there's going to be a mediocre coach. And I'm not cheering for losses. I'm just kind of weighing the positives with the negatives, that even if this defense turns the corner and everything starts playing, better. I don't love the idea of Matt Eberflus being in charge of this team for the next few years.
He, over this period of deep adversity, let's just call it that, first 3 weeks of the season were about as hard as you can bounce off the floorboards as an NFL team is going to experience. He did not show exemplary leadership. Like, there's no other way to say that. And maybe he learns from that and decides that that's not the way he wants to operate in the future. I hope so. Look, plenty of mistakes in my past that I've learned from, and I wouldn't be where I am without those. And they were not pretty. Like, I had my Matt Eberflus sections of my life. So I hope he learns from that, but it is a low tolerance gig. There is no other way to say that. Being an NFL head coach, you don't get many shots at it, and you don't get many shots to be as wrong as he's been over the first 3 weeks of this NFL season. Like, it's been bad. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Also, we talked about this on Bears Over Beers last night. Like, I'm not particularly sure what he's great at. Like, he came in as a big culture guy. He certainly had a defensive background. The defense had been horrible, like historically horrible, up until these last 2 games, averaging, 14 straight losses at 24, 25 points a game. So like 3+ touchdowns per game.
Right.
You've been real bad against like historical precedents. And whenever you're talking about that, it's ugly. So there's no shine for me with Eberflus. I'm not like, well, but he's even with Nagy, I was like, he's a good CEO type. Like, guys play hard for him. He rallies the locker room, even if he's not a great play caller, which he clearly wasn't. He seems like a decent play designer, and he's a good CEO. Like, get him an OC that works, and maybe that could work. With Eberflus, I'm like, what is it you're doing? It's kind of like Mike McCarthy with the Cowboys. I'm like, so what is it you do here? So I'm not in any hurry to see Eberflus like extended or anointed as the long-term coach, because not really sure what benefit he adds. That being said, it'll be fascinating to watch what this team does, because it was so early. That's what we were saying throughout the first 3 weeks, is like, this is terrible. And it doesn't seem like it can go down from here. Like, it's really, really, really awful. It feels hopeless, but there's a lot of season left here. There's 14 weeks left of the season. They could do a lot of things here. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I'm with you. And actually, I had Danny Parkins on the Bears Banter podcast a few weeks ago, and that was one of the comments he made, is what edge does Matt Eberflus give you? And that's a good question. Like, Nagy's going to be an interesting case, and I'm not putting him in this category when I bring these 2 guys up, but like Bill Belichick failed in Cleveland.
Sure.
Moves on to New England and becomes the greatest coach in the history of the sport. Pete Carroll fails with the Jets and now, has an excellent run with the Seattle Seahawks. If you can do that personally and assess your time as a head coach, figure out what you did well, what you didn't do well, and make those necessary changes, if you get a second opportunity, you can be successful. And with Matt Nagy, 34-31, I think, was the record. He had a winning record in Chicago, which is, when that gets pulled back after a few years, you're going to kind of forget how everything was at the end of that tenure. If he's, especially if it's Andy Reid retiring and he gets to slide in there, who knows? But if he is intelligent enough to look back and go, I wasn't good at this, I need someone else to do this. I don't know if he will, because but But if he does that, I mean, that's a guy that has an opportunity to do a lot better in his second opportunity. Matt Eberflus, assuming this does end sometime in the next few years, I don't know if he's going to have that kind of opportunity. I don't see that. And I don't know. Let's wait and see. Maybe he's really going to turn the corner here and grow from this. But yeah, so far there are a lot of questions about that head coach. And, I do have concerns that Justin Fields could save his job. So let's get to a few comments here before we wrap it up. Let's start with some guy named Dave, who says he, and that's Justin Fields, is getting rid of it more often and not taking a sack. So I will agree to most of this, Dave. He's definitely releasing the ball quicker. He's making reads and getting it out. He still is taking too many sacks. He still was. Now, again, this is a very good defensive line. He was still sacked, I think it was 3 times today. He was on pace. I put out Justin Fields stats after 4 games and projected him out over 17. And I think he was on pace for, it was an obscene amount of sacks. 72, I think was the number. You're not going to survive 72 sacks. No. Ask David Carr. So with that in mind, yes, he's doing the right things, which should lead to less sacks. But, any times he does hold on to the football, he's not going to get rid of the ball in 3 seconds every time. The time he does get rid of the football, he's got to make sure, EJ, he's not taking these sacks.
He has improved greatly over the last 2 weeks. That still doesn't make him great. That's the sort of bottom line there. But what we're not seeing is the complete loss, like the complete deer in the headlights. I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going left. I'm going right. Oh, geez, I'm sacked. 5.5 seconds. Like, those plays have been largely limited over the last couple of weeks. And that is a positive step because you can't go anywhere from there. If you have that, that does not make an NFL offense, period. Like, you cannot operate consistently over time being like that. Like, that's just not a thing. Like, that's not going to work. You can't work around that or scheme around that or anything else. So we've seen an improvement. We've seen over the last couple of weeks, less of that, more decisiveness. A couple of double hitches and whatever else, but like hitting open guys, hitting guys on the crosser, throwing with some accuracy, even when guys are covered, like trusting it to let it loose. The throw to DJ Moore in the left corner of the end zone, like it's the right read. Like, that guy's one-on-one, let it go. And he wouldn't let it go in the first 3 weeks. So you're not going to get the points. You're not going to get the interception. I understand that. But, like, that is a throw you have to let go in the NFL and say, hey, I trust my guy. Like, DJ Moore is a dude. Like, it's his job to win that ball. So we're seeing some more trust. We're seeing some more what I would call correct NFL quarterback decisions. That gives me hope. Is it perfect? Is he wonderful at avoiding pressure? He's pretty good. Like, he had some pretty good moves in the pocket tonight where he moved away from would-be sacks, stepped up, stepped away, had that sort of sixth sense that you really want quarterbacks to have. Felt the pressure is the term in the NFL. And guys that don't do that, it's not an easy thing to like teach. Like, they just do it or they don't. And he did that a couple of times. So all of those things are positives. All of those things are sort of rolling in the right direction. Is it like ideal? No, but we were literally bouncing off the bottom. We were coming from the worst. There wasn't anybody playing worse quarterback as a starter in the NFL for the first 2.5, basically 3 weeks than Justin Fields. He was awful. And all of a sudden, like, snap your fingers, halfway through the Denver game and most of the Washington game, he's middle of the pack, like, or better. And that's an amazing turnaround.
Yeah, amazing turnaround. And I know obviously we're going to talk Bears here, but just one side note, Sam Howell, this was really the first time I actually sat down and watched him. And look, you can see why Rivera and Bieniemy like him. He puts a lot of good plays out there. It's a roller coaster right now. I mean, this is his first year starting. He's basically a rookie, even though it's his second year. But he makes some questionable decisions. But again, he's learning on the job. he's fun to watch. He's a bit of a roller coaster, but he's fun to watch.
I love Howell. I came out in our summer preview series and said I was super excited to see the Howell and EB pairing. Like the pairing between offensive coordinator and quarterback is one of the most pivotal and important relationships in all of sport. And I really felt like those two guys could hit a groove. EB understands how to use guys like that. And there are a lot of weapons. Like it's not without weapons. Now, his offensive line play has been pretty abysmal. Like Morgan Moses played the lights out for the first 2.5 weeks. And other than that, the Washington offensive line's been kind of, and so like even against the Eagles last week, he got the hell beat out of him. Like the Eagles defensive line beat the hell out of Sam Howell, and he still came back and put together a sterling fourth quarter drive, like a not standard young quarterback fourth quarter drive, especially not after having the snot beat out of you for 3.5 quarters. Like there's something there with Howell. He's a good runner. He can absolutely gun the ball down the field. Like you said, he's learning on the job. He's making decisions, I think, better and better every week. And I feel like that sort of mind meld between Bieniemy and Howell is starting to form up. And that's bad news for folks that'll face the Commanders later on down the road, because that has potential when you've got, Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson and Logan Thomas and like a bunch of weapons, and you start to click. If the offensive line can just hold on for a second, like Howell's going to beat some people.
Yeah, no, you can see the potential there, and that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Tumultuous Titan, will Whitehair ever be consistent at snapping? At this point, no, he will not. And he is going to blow if he's the center now moving forward. He's going to blow some snaps where he's going to shoot it up over Justin's head. Justin's going to have to go for it. He's going to take a sack or lay Justin out. It's going to happen. Now what you have to weigh here is how much better is he at center than Lucas Patrick. Now, Cody Whitehair at guard and Lucas Patrick at center, that was comparable because Cody was struggling mightily out there. Yeah. But at center, I want to go back and look at it a little more carefully. It looked pretty good overall with Cody. I know you've got Feeney sitting there as well. But, injuries, I'm never one to cheer for injuries. But if that injury, in essence, ended Lucas Patrick's time in Chicago, because, now you can get in Feeney and Carter and whoever it might be, if there are any other injuries along the interior, that would be for the best, because, you mentioned it earlier in the show that he just doesn't have it. So for now, if it's not going to be Feeney, I will take the risk of the snaps with Whitehair over what Patrick was putting on tape.
Yeah, I can't understate this. I was sure, like, there is nothing sure in the draft. Nothing. First round picks, blue chippers, you name it. There's nothing sure in the draft. I was certain, like convicted 100% that the Bears would take a center at some point, because I was like, what you have is not NFL grade. You need one, and there's a bunch of good ones. Let's go. Like, I don't care, early, middle, late, like, let's just do it. Got to the end of the draft last spring, and they didn't take one. And I was like, oh, wait, that was on purpose.
Now, let me interrupt you. Now, obviously, Ryan Poles will never admit what the plan was. If there was a guy that got swiped, if Juice Scruggs was their guy and he was just taken before they could do it. So you truly think it was on purpose, that they had no intent, unless some gold pick just tumbled to them, that they didn't have the intention to do it? We'll never know.
I thought that they had the intention to do it. And, this is the thing with teams in the draft. If you have an intention to do it, you have A, B, and C. You have, hey, if this guy falls to the second, we're going to grab him. If he doesn't, we're going to wait until the fourth, and then we're going to weigh this guy against the other options there. And, if that doesn't happen, we're going to get this guy in the fifth and the sixth, or we're going to bring in a UDFA. Like, whatever. You have tiers of, like, cascading failure, right? Like we didn't get him in the first. Cool. We're going to look for him in the third or fourth. No, we didn't get him. Okay. We still need one. Okay. Now we're going to prioritize it in the fifth or sixth. And we're going to go get, Olu for Michigan, who started for the Seahawks against the Giants and looked pretty good. Like there were centers all down the board here. JMS up high, and Tippmann, and then, guys in the middle like Ricky Stromberg, who strangely enough is with the Commanders, and, Olu, who's with the Seahawks. There were centers all down the board here.
And Weipler went in the sixth.
And Weipler played very well in the preseason. And they get to the end and they just didn't do it like at all. They didn't even really do it in UDFA. And I was like, oh, they think they're good. Like it literally hit me in the head like a 2x4. I was like, oh no, we just see this completely differently. They think they're fine and they're clearly not fine. Like Patrick got his ass handed to him last year, like multiple times. It was not a like, oh
yeah, we kept hearing that. Well, he'll be better when he gets to center kind of thing.
I didn't buy that. And like, we know that Whitehair as a blocker is much better than Patrick at center, but his snaps are a smorgasbord of maybe. So at that point, I'm like, look, you're in a good center draft, get a center. And they didn't. And then I was like, oh, because they think they don't need one. Wait a minute. Like, we just see this very, very differently. And, it is difficult for me to watch JMS on the Giants or Olu on the Seahawks or Weipler, and go, is that not better than what you have? Like, I kind of think it is. And you start to think about that line combination, right? Like, hey, maybe there's not an injury at left tackle. And then you got either Whitehair or Tevin at left. You got your high price free agent at right. You've got a high draft pick at right tackle, and then you have one of these center prospects like holding down the pivot, like rookie pivots. I get it, but they have guys on both sides of them that can help them out. I have trouble thinking that's not better.
Right. All right. While we're talking center, let's do this one from Eric Bono. I'm not sure. But how different is the center position for calling blocking assignments versus other positions? I hear the argument for rookie center, but how hard is it for a rook to step in with a fairly inexperienced, offensive line overall? And I think that's a good point. And EJ, I'll let you take this one. But look, we've seen this with the Bears in the past. Like Sam Mustipher was at center, and we were all pulling our hair out. But guys like Olin Kreutz in the offense line said that he was critical and he was needed to call those plays or call those blocking assignments. We'll see. James Daniels, when he was here, we heard he couldn't play center because he wasn't good at making those calls. So it is a key aspect of the center position, and you need to be able to call those blocking assignments. You need to be able to adjust at the line. It's critical.
It is. It can be a village, right? There are a lot of teams that say it can't be. Like this, whatever the center says goes. And so you need that alpha at center who can absolutely even come into a room of vets and say, I got it, right? Some systems require that. Other systems, the guards can lean over and go, no, this is a shift left. Like, you think it's straight up, but this is a shift left. Like, call shift left. And as long as the center is able to take that sort of veteran advice of folks that are around him and have seen what's coming at him, because look, DCs are ruthless. Like, if you've got a rookie center, they're going to play on that. Like, they're going to try and exploit that. As long as you have a system that's set up with some veteran leadership that's flexible, it's not key that the center call that block out. Like, if the right guard can identify that block and say, you got the wrong one, like, don't put us in that spot, that's okay. And you can't have infighting on the line. You can't have the right guard competing with the center. But as long as the center is willing to listen to veteran voices around him and understand, and then everybody gets on the same page, which is the most important part of O-line blocking. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for rookie centers to come in. Absolutely. There's a heavier load for them than other offensive line positions. Is it impossible? It's obviously not. We see rookie centers, we saw one a couple of years ago for Kansas City who was tremendous and was one of the top 5 centers in the NFL in his rookie season, and is probably one of the top 3 centers in the NFL now, just a couple of years into his career. Like, it is possible. You need the right guy, but yeah, there's more pressure. Is it impossible? I don't buy that.
All right, a couple more here before we wrap up. How about Kel, who says, not a Bears fan, but stopping by from Bootleg Football. Hello, Kel. But since I'm here, have to ask, you guys paid $18 million for Tremaine Edmonds. Has he had a positive impact? Now, I'll just jump out of the gate and say I would not pay $18 million for a Mike linebacker. That's not what I'm doing. I don't want to put my resources there. I'm assuming that was a Matt Eberflus more than a Ryan Poles decision, to try and push to get a guy like that. And I think Tremaine Edmonds has not had an $18 million impact. That's for sure at this point. And I don't know if he will because, and again, you just didn't know Tremaine Edmonds, what he was the first few years of his career versus his contract year was a different linebacker. And I feel like that, I wasn't watching every Buffalo game, but I feel like this Tremaine Edmonds is more in line with the non-contract year Tremaine Edmonds, a good player, but not at that level. So for me, I'm a very about that decision. I wouldn't have committed to that when you had what you needed up in the defensive line. I'm a trenches guy. That's where I want to spend. But EJ, your thoughts on the Tremaine Edmonds, the signing and his performance?
Yeah. Well, a lot of layers there. Keeping Roquan would have been more expensive by far. I mean, the deal he signed with the Ravens is much more expensive than the Tremaine Edmonds deal. Tremaine Edmonds, for his first couple of years in the league, the whole book on him was he was incredibly young coming in as a rookie. He was barely 19. So everybody knew that he was physically talented beyond the beyond in terms of size, speed, hitting ability, whatever, but he was a loose cannon in terms of his targeting computer. He didn't know what he was seeing. When he, sort of went off in the right direction and hit it, it was super explosive. And Buffalo spent 2.5 years sort of dialing all that out of him or dialing all that into him, depending on which way you look at it. And his last year in Buffalo, he played very, very well. He was super impactful, which is why he got the big deal, which is still less than the Roquan deal. So it really comes down to, do you want to pay top of market, or do you want to pay below that, get a guy that's younger, and sort of pick him up at the height of, hey, he's playing really well. Now, he's not played that well in this system yet. Again, we're a month in. No, he's not had impact commensurate with his contract. It is what you're going to pay in free agency. You're going to overpay in free agency, especially if you go early, especially if you go top of market. And Tremaine Edmonds was both of those things. He was the top inside linebacker available in that free agency cycle. So you're going to pay a premium for that. Do I think he can reach that? Yes. Has he reached that yet? No. And to Bill's point, hey, that might not be the place where you're going to focus the amount of resources that they did in your defense. I'm going to go with something else. I'm going to go with edge. I'm going to go with corner. I'm going to go with whatever. I can buy that too. He was the top free agent available. Has he lived up to that yet? No. Can he? It is possible. It is not, I'm not thrown in the towel on this signing yet. Have you seen the benefit in the first month? No, not right out of the gate. Not yet.
All right, let's do Andrew Fitzpatrick, who says, what's your faith in Getsy? Has Cluster Fluss been holding him back? Well, you're applauding, so I'll let you go first.
No, I'm applauding Fitzy because he's a patron both on Bears Over Beers and over on Bootleg Football. And he's also the guy that sent Brett a bottle of Malort for tonight, which was a hero move.
That is awesome.
So
that is
Fitzy,
awesome. Well
we
done.
love you.
Well done.
No, Fitzy, you're amazing. I only escaped the hammer because you're going to love this. There were no bottles of Malort within range to get here by Thursday. So I escaped the wrath. I probably won't be so lucky the next Thursday game. Fitzy, great supporter of football and football content. Has Clusterflus been holding him back? This is.
I'd want to know if it was Matt Eberflus who wanted to go as conservative as he did in the second half against Denver, if that was encouraged.
There's a lot we just don't know about this. And this feels to me, again, coming from the draft side, this feels to me a lot like pre-draft work where you do the best you can on film and what you can gather from interviews and testing. And then there's this big other third about, does the guy love football? Is he smart? Like, does he like his teammates? Is he willing to give everything on every down? Like, you just don't know those things. And we don't know what level of control or limiting or whatever else that this particular head coach has had on Getsy. And this is a classic question where I live. I mean, Pete Carroll and his offensive coordinators for a long time. It's like, is this Pete's offense? Is this Russell Wilson's offense? When Shane Waldron got here, like, how much of this is Shane? How many new ideas is he going to be able to bring? Or is Pete just going to run the ball? This is a very similar question to that. I like the motion I've seen in the offense, regardless of that particular power structure over the last 2 weeks.
Right.
And a lot of that has been some elimination of some terrible plays. We've seen a lot less screens, like here,
a lot less
screens, which is awesome. Like, get away from the stuff that is horrible. We've also seen better decisions from Justin, and is this chicken or egg? I don't know which. The answer is yes, it's been better, and we've seen both, and I'm all for it. I want to see more of it. Is Flus sort of holding the reins over Getsy? Oh, I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't think so overall. I would think Getsy's got a lot of free reign on the game plan and all, but I do wonder there in the second half when there's things on the line, how much Eberflus would be involved there. But look, right now, what you're seeing with Getsy and Fields together, and look, we were all criticizing Luke Getsy, which was 100%, deserved. But at the same time, Luke Getsy is learning as a play caller as well. This is only his 22nd game doing it. He's not a seasoned pro at that, and he could get better and should get better, and as hopefully we are seeing is getting better. So, do I have faith in Getsy? No. But is it growing? I have more faith in Getsy right now than I did 2 weeks ago.
That's very true.
It's trending in the right direction, and hopefully it continues to do that. So I'm going to wrap up with this one just because, this was a hot topic of conversation. And that's kind of the draft for next year for Chicago with the 2 picks. So this is from Nico. Ideally, I would like to see us keep Fields and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I had a tweet that I put out. I guess it was yesterday.
I saw that.
That just went nuclear. I did not think it was going to go nuclear.
Oh, you got to know that.
But, I assumed it was going to get a reaction. But, basically an NFL analyst told me he thought that no matter what Justin Fields did, if the Bears ended up with the number 1 pick, either if it was on their own, of course, that means Justin Fields wasn't good enough if they were the worst team in the NFL again. But he was also basically hinting at if Carolina gave them the number 1 pick at this point and Fields improves and they get 6-7 wins, that they would still pivot and trade Justin Fields. And that's still maybe a distinct possibility. We don't know exactly where Ryan Poles' head is going to be. That's going to be fascinating to watch. But I wanted to bring this one up because I love Marvin Harrison Jr. And the thought, just the idea, like if Carolina finishes with gives the Bears the 3rd overall pick and Williams and May go to whoever they go to, and the Bears are sitting there at 3. I love Olu Fashanu. I would not, and look, Braxton Jones is fine, but Fashanu and Wright as your bookends for 10 years, sign me up for that. But Marvin Harrison Jr. and DJ Moore for Justin Fields, EJ, I mean, that's, I don't even know what that is. I as a Chicago Bears fan who hasn't seen a passing attack, I can't even imagine what that would look like.
Yeah, it's sexy, that's for sure. And it is a fascinating interplay between the Carolina pick, which looks like it's going to be extremely high at this point, and the Bears pick, which up until the last 6 quarters of football looked like it was going to be extremely high. In fact, the Bears owned temporarily the first 2 picks overall in the NFL draft as of a couple of weeks ago. So the idea of, what does that mean? Well, it is very complicated. If we continue to see growth from Fields and he keeps putting up numbers like he has for the past 2 weeks, he's going to complicate that question. Make no mistake. Before that, it was if you're ending up in that spot, it's Caleb. And that was the tweet that you put out is look, there's basically nothing that could sway us from saying we're going to take a guy that is largely viewed, and I hate this word, as a generational quarterback prospect. He has a lot of skills. And unless, and I posed this question to Brett on our live stream because of your tweet, and I referenced that, and I said, how many teams do you think that would be true for just right now? Like, how many teams do you think would flat out, if they somehow ended up with the first overall pick, flat out say no or trade the pick away instead of taking Caleb Williams? And my number of teams for that, for sure, like lockdown, is 4. Like it's possible. It's possible we could get to 7 depending on some interesting scenarios. Like, hey, we just drafted CJ Stroud. We like where he's at, and we would love the picks to build around him. So like that's an asterisk. The straight out number is 4 or 5. And everybody else would take Caleb. And if you are a fan of those teams and you don't think so, the answer is you're wrong. Like right now, the opinion around the NFL is if you don't have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and a very few others, like 2 to 3 others in the NFL, and you suddenly somehow luck into the overall number 1 pick, you're taking Caleb like 100% of the time.
Yeah, and so, I thought it was interesting you brought that up because that was actually part of the conversation. I couldn't fit everything in a tweet where obviously I don't pay for Twitter, so I'm limited as to my amount. But we actually talked about that. I think his number was 6.
Yep. I think it goes anywhere from like 4 to 6.
It was, I think, on
like
Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert.
Yep, that's the 4, and after that it gets really.
And then I think we had Hurts and maybe Lawrence. Maybe that was
Hurts is a question. Lawrence is a question. CJ Stroud is a question. Richardson, after what he's done in Indianapolis, could be a question in terms of, hey, we'd rather have those picks to build around him. Like, but 4 is like there's a solid 4. There's a questionable 2, and there's maybe 2 more you could add on after that. Outside of that, there's no question. If your team somehow ended up with number 1 overall, they're taking Caleb Williams.
Yeah, no, you just, he's that level. And the simple answer is he's the best since Luck. And I think you will, when we get to the draft here, 6 months from now, whatever it is, you will have, very good draft analysts, whoever, Daniel Jeremiah, whoever you like. I don't know who it's going to be. Like, they're going to start saying he's the best. Like, they will, some will say he is a better prospect than Luck. And they're going to start pulling names out of the air, like John Elway. Like they're going to, because he's in that, he's going to be in
Peyton
that.
Manning, tier. Trevor had a little bit of that. Luck, like, he's that guy that comes along every 5 to 10 years that is atop the quarterback rankings, which is the most important position in professional sports, who a lot of people go, yeah, I want what he's got.
All right, EJ. Well, let's wrap this puppy up here. Thank you for joining me. Just final thoughts here. Obviously thrilled with the win, but just the one thing that I haven't had a chance to say is RIP Dick Butkus. I know you brought it up at the beginning of the podcast. That is the guy, that was my dad's favorite player of his entire lifetime. Rest in peace to both of them. But I had an opportunity to meet Dick Butkus for the first time at the Super Bowl. In fact, I changed.
I remember that now that you bring that up.
I changed my profile pic actually on Twitter. I put up the picture of me and Dick. And it was actually, he was nice enough to come on my podcast.
Yeah.
2018 into 2019 off season. And he, what he came on for? He came on to promote the idea and to put pressure on the NFL to start taking care of the older veterans. We've had this whole thing about health coverage and everything. He wasn't talking about the guys that have Money in the Bank more recent.
No,
He's talking about
the lower
his
level
guys
players. Yeah.
that do not have the money to pay their medical bills, and brought up guys
Yeah.
like Doug Atkins, a former Bear who was just basically living in poverty and just barely could move. Like, there were so many sad stories, and that's what he's doing. You know, he's 75 years old at the time, and he's trying to make sure that other players are being taken care of. Big personality, you know, a lot of funny commercials. And, you know, look, I don't think there's any good football movies, but I enjoy Necessary Roughness. It's a guilty pleasure of mine.
Sure.
And the convicts coming to play the guys, and Dick Butkus being the leader of the convicts, and they just pummel the hell out of him in practice. It's one of my favorite scenes in a football movie. I just love that. So I'm gonna miss the guy, and you know, always he was just like this connection to my dad, even though my dad wasn't around anymore. So that's my final thought is Dick Butkus, you know, one of the great Bears of all time, and he'll be missed on multiple levels.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. He was slightly before my time. Most people think I'm older than dirt. I'm close. I'm maybe older than dust. He was right before my time. I didn't watch Dick Butkus play football, but strangely, when I was a young guy starting to get into pro football, all the guys that were tough guys in the league at that point all referenced Butkus and Nitschke and, you know, all those guys, like the Jack Lamberts of the world, were all like, well, Dick Butkus was a tough guy. I'm not a tough guy. Like, that guy was a tough guy. And, you know, Butkus at that point was in his early retirement phase from the league, late 70s, early 80s. He was messing around in Hollywood, the occasional movie role and, you know, commercials for sure. And then he kind of went quiet for a bit, and he kind of came back into the media as a sort of elder statesman, and, you know, came on podcasts like yours and supported good causes. And, you know, I think gave the Bears a fair amount of guff for not always pushing as hard as they could to win, and that was always something that he was going to do. So I'll miss him. I never met him, but I'll miss him dearly. He was a great Bear and a great person.
Yeah, and I'm gonna wrap just a quick little story. Dick Butkus, when I was working at Sirius XM, Floyd Little came to the and was just, he wasn't even on air. He was just talking to a bunch of producers and just hanging out, and he was just telling stories. And he brought up Dick Butkus. Now, I'm going to bring this up because I love this story, even though this is now a non-PC story because of everything we know about concussions. But I'm going to bring it up anyway because the way Floyd Little told it was just fantastic. So Broncos are playing the Bears, and, you know, he comes running around the corner, and Butkus just levels him, just crushed him, he said. But he popped right up. He didn't want to let Dick think he got hurt, so he just popped up, and he goes running, running off. And Butkus, grabs Floyd Little and goes, you okay, Floyd? He goes, yeah, Dick, I'm fine. He goes, are you sure you're okay, Floyd? Dick, I told you I'm fine. Yeah, it was a good hit, but I'm fine. And Dick goes, all right, Floyd, well, then you need to get to your huddle.
That's right. Back to the right sideline. I've heard that story, and not from those two, but from others who it wasn't the right huddle, it was the wrong sideline. Like,
sideline,
cool, but like, don't go to our sideline, like go to yours. And they were like, not a PC story, but like Dick Butkus was a hitter, and when you think about guys like Nitschke and Bednarik and Butkus, who are all sort of the same era, and the old NFL film stuff, if you've seen it, wrapped in tape, huddled in a coat, steaming, mud all over the place, blood on whatever piece of, clothing was showing. Like, that was football in those days. And those guys weren't backing down from anybody. Every play, and just loved it. Like, loved the ability to go out and like beat people up on Sundays. And that was the game. And, it was accepted and acknowledged and just part of the gig at that point. And when you talk about the preeminent guys in that culture, he's right there, not just for the Bears, but for the league. Like, he was that guy that, like, look, if you were a young linebacker in those days, you knew who Dick Butkus was. Might not have been your favorite player, but you knew who Dick Butkus was because of how he played the game and how good he was.
Yeah, and it was, he's, you see the Dick Butkus highlight reels, and it's hit after hit after hit because they were vicious. But this guy was incredible in coverage. I mean, he had tons of interceptions. Like he was a guy who could truly do it all. So that was, he is a special player, and there's a reason why whenever they do those lists of the greatest players of all time, he is always in the top 5, despite not being a quarterback. So, but that's going to wrap it up. 40-20. The Chicago Bears get their first win of the year, and there is hope. There is hope, Bears fans, and we will see, a nice long break here now, and we will see if they can continue this and start trending upwards to a season that we can, again, they don't have to go 10-7, but just give us a season where you're competitive and we can talk about it and enjoy it. EJ, thank you for joining me on today's podcast. I enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure we will talk again soon.
Well, I appreciate every opportunity that you've ever given me, including this one. It's always a good time. And, these are happy circumstances. Like we don't always get together and get to talk about a Bears win. We do tonight, and that's super fun.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Bears fans. For those of you listening, for watching on YouTube and anywhere else you can get it, Facebook and Twitter. And for those of you listening to the podcast, thank you very much. We will be back for all of our podcasts next week. Bears Banter, Bears Over Beers. So make sure you check those out. And hopefully Minnesota Vikings will be win number 2. Bear down, everybody. We will talk to you again soon.